Today on Community Cooking, we have guest chef and registered dietitian Jessica Beaudoin making another healthy meal. We're recreating some of Jessica's favorite food growing up with a healthy twist. It's vegetarian goulash, DIY trail snacks, and turmeric tea. We're cooking with some of the best chefs from right here in our own community, so grab a seat, get comfortable. We've got another great show for you. This is your Community Cooking. Hello and welcome to Community Cooking. I am your host, Kirk Lyons. Joining me in the kitchen today is chef and registered dietitian Jessica Beaudoin.
Hi, nice to see you again, Kirk.
Nice to see you. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back again.
Of course. Well, we love having you because you always bring nice, healthy offerings. Let's say that.
Thank you.
And
yes.
today is no different. I'm surveying the ingredients here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do.
So today I'm going to be making, like I said, a healthier version of the goulash. So rather than using ground beef and canned products, we're going to be using more plant-based foods. So instead of ground beef, I'm going to be using tempeh, which we're going to blitz up a little bit.
Okay.
In addition to that, we'll be stewing all of this together with some kidney beans. I've got some whole wheat pasta.
Okay.
A little bit of canned tomatoes and some tomato paste to bring it that rich tomato flavor. We'll be flavoring we'll be including plenty of vegetables, by the way. That was another way I made this a little bit healthier.
Okay.
Some onions and peppers like my mom made it, but also including a little bit of mushrooms for that added umami.
Right. Well, and also, too, it has that a lot of vegetarians love the mushroom for a meat substitute.
That meatiness.
And if the tempeh wasn't your thing, you could just do strictly mushroom and maybe do several different types.
Exactly.
Very meaty quality
exactly.
to it. Okay.
And I love, though, the texture that tempeh brings. So
I'm good
hopefully
with
we'll
it.
have a few converts.
I'm good with it. Listen, I love my meat as well,
Yes.
but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it in moderation for sure. And then what do we have over here?
So a couple of other ingredients. I'm also going to flavor the broth with a little bit of cayenne pepper sauce and some onion powder, basil, and oregano. And then generally, my mom used to use more of cheddar cheese to thicken the stew when it was done, but I'm actually going to be using nutritional yeast.
Which has a sort of a cheesy quality.
It does,
All
almost
right.
Parmesan-y.
What do you need me to do?
So we're going to have to chop up some vegetables first
All
things
right.
first. We need to chop up onions and peppers into a nice dice, one full onion and about the equivalent of a full pepper. If you wouldn't
Okay,
mind passing
sure
me the pepper, I suppose
Absolutely.
I could work
Which,
on that too.
Pick a color.
I'll do green and red. Traditionally, we made it with green peppers growing up, and they have a very different flavor than the ripe red, yellow, and orange
Much
colored
more
varieties.
acidic. Yeah,
it is.
much more acidic.
It
It's
is.
funny because in terms of like a raw pepper, I will never eat a green pepper raw.
Right.
It's just a little bit too much for me. But in some things, I really do like a green pepper. You
Yes.
know, I really do like a green pepper in like a cacciatore or a stew of that nature, or sometimes some like a picadillo or something like a Cuban picadillo. I love a green pepper.
It definitely has its place, and for me, it's a little nostalgic. We grew up with green peppers; they're a little
That
cheaper,
was like well, right.
a little easier to come by.
I don't remember like many colors of peppers in our house either. It was
Yes.
pretty much the green pepper.
Yes, and they're good. Like you said, they have a different flavor. They're just basically underripe versions of their more colorful counterparts.
Right.
So,
Right. And I mean, yeah, this is you know, listen. While we're sort of saying that was a camping meal, this is really. You could make this at any time, and this is a summertime meal. This is a wintertime meal. I mean, it can be hearty, it can be light. It sort of
exactly.
always fits the bill, right?
Right,
Something
right.
like this, one pot.
Right.
So easy
Easy.
peasy for a weeknight.
Easy for a weeknight. Easy cleanup for a camping trip.
Onions going here.
Yep.
Okay.
We're gonna cook the onions and the peppers together. Speaking of which, let's get our saute pan going with a little bit of olive oil in just a moment.
So, registered dietitian, you're doing that now out of Providence Little Company of Mary, correct?
That's right. I'm working at Providence Little Company of Mary Medical Center here in Torrance. I work mostly with patients who are staying in our hospital, but I also work in the rehabilitation unit. And then being a nonprofit hospital, another one of our big mandates is to create healthy options and more healthy communities.
Okay.
So recently we did, for example, the Successful Aging Expo with the Daily Breeze. We sponsor that one.
Right.
We have regular community events, so
Nice.
it's It's a lot of fun. They not only focus on treating people when they're sick, but also preventing diseases from happening in the first place.
Nice, yeah. We could definitely use some of that, right? I mean,
absolutely. An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure.
Right?
So they say. So just going to get a little olive oil into the pan, and you can see it's kind of shimmering already. Might give it a
would you like me to start on some of the mushrooms?
Why don't we get the mushrooms
How
going?
would you
Absolutely.
Like
those just kind of quartered, and some of the larger ones we could maybe break into sixths or eighths.
And are you good with stems?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
great. Yeah, I am too.
All right.
And what about, how much, half of this?
About half of that should work. And actually, I'll take one of the garlic cloves that you've got on your cutting board.
You got it. There you are.
Divide and conquer some of the duties here.
And you were telling me before we got started here that you also teach.
I do.
Cal State Long Beach.
I teach at Cal State Long Beach. I teach the introductory nutrition course over there, which is another way I kind of get my feet wet in prevention. I love it.
My first 2 years of college where I spent as a 49er.
Wonderful. We're actually updating our mascot. So
really?
Yes, we won't be 49ers or have I don't remember what our mascot's name was. I think Pete. Prospector
Something
Pete.
Like, yes, I
Prospector
think you're right. I think you're right. What I remember most about Long Beach State were all the hills.
Yes.
Right? It's
Yes.
the hilliest campus.
You get your steps in. It's right on a fault line.
I remember my one semester, I had my last two classes of the day, one was at the very bottom of the hill, and the other one was at the very top of the hill.
Go figure.
And that was, yeah.
Did it snow both ways?
Yeah, right. Right? Yeah. I tell that story now to the boys.
Absolutely. No, it's a beautiful campus, but definitely there are some hills.
Yeah.
Get your steps in, though. There's shuttles across campus, but I'm always encouraging my students to walk.
Shuttles?
Yeah,
we didn't have shuttles.
No. Of course.
No.
Of course.
There were no shuttles in 1985. Didn't exist.
Oh, goodness.
I just dated myself right there.
All right. Throwing out the years. Now, I'm going to get the tempeh started as well. We're going to be using this for the beef substitute.
And now, why don't you explain to people what tempeh is actually?
So it looks a little funky. It is actually a fermented soybean product. And I was thinking, we were talking about this earlier.
Is this small enough?
That's perfect.
Okay,
That's
great.
perfect. We can put that in the bowl for
I'm
now.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Not at all.
Back to the tempeh.
Fermented soybean product that's compressed. It originates in Indonesia. And it's really high in protein, high in vitamins and minerals, manganese, B vitamins.
And you could absolutely utilize it the way it is here and slice it up and make it more of a steaky thing. But you're going to grind it up because you want it to be to emulate like a ground meat. Like
a ground meat, exactly. Ground beef would be normally what my mom would use in this stew, but I'm going to use the seitan instead. You could also slice this up, thinly slice it like you would tofu and pan sear it. It takes to the grill very nicely. It's pretty hearty for a plant-based protein. Doesn't lose its shape.
Okay, great.
So while those onions and peppers are going, I'm going to quickly blitz it. Take a few pulses with it.
You don't want to turn it into tempeh powder.
Right. Still want
some chunks.
chunks.
I mean, it almost looks like cooked ground turkey right now.
Right? Exactly. And this adds a nice kind of mouthfeel, a chewiness to the stew by the time it's done, which you wouldn't necessarily get from those mushrooms. So while these are kind of cooking up nicely, I'm going to go ahead and season them a little bit with some salt and pepper.
Always good to season them at this point, right?
Yep, season as you go.
Natural sugars.
Kind of extract some of the water content. Pulling it out with some salt. I may also throw in the onion powder at this stage. I think that doesn't hurt. This is just a little bit of extra. Since we used a little bit, we used more canned products, like canned pasta tomato sauce, for example, whose brand I won't name, growing up instead of the way that I'm going to be making it. So
one thing that really started bringing it back and using it for is thickening things, as opposed to, I used to finish off my chilies and things like that with maybe a little bit of cornmeal and use that to kind of sort of bring it together. I'm going a little bit more towards the tomato paste route. I think it's a cleaner route, and because of that, I'm buying more tomato paste. So I used to like the tubes too.
Yeah.
But look at the price on those tubes compared to the can.
That's true.
What to do, right? I freeze it. I open the can, I use what I need to use, and then I have these little silicone cups, and I'll just put a tablespoon in there, throw them in plastic baggies, throw them in the freezer, and then when I need it, just pop it out, and it's good to go.
That's a great idea. Maybe I should start doing that.
Now you're talking, because I mean you literally can get a small can of tomato paste for maybe what, 80 cents, 79 cents, something like that.
Right.
So now you're talking really hardly anything.
Good call.
And of course, everything else here can be purchased at the Torrance Farmers Market.
That's right.
Pretty much.
That's right. Again, bringing in some more fresh vegetables.
And if you've got a ton of fresh tomatoes growing in the yard or need to be used up, replace that with the fresh tomatoes.
Exactly. I did put that in my recipe. 2 pounds of fresh tomatoes can replace the canned tomatoes that we have here when they're perfectly in season. So now that this is kind of sauteing up a little bit, these mushrooms, you can brown them a little bit in this pan if you want to, or if you're in a little bit more of a hurry, you can start adding things in. These will cook down nicely when they're stewing with the tomatoes and with the water and everything.
Right. What I do with my mushrooms when I'm doing something like this is I'll do them in a separate pan.
Yes, that's another thing you can do.
Get a nice hot pan with oil and get them so that, because there's nothing I love more than when you get that brown crunchy texture on the mushroom.
Absolutely.
And then what it allows you to do, it allows you also to sort of like hold it and add it back when you want. You know,
That's true.
So that you have the exact consistency of that mushroom that you want. I love that.
If you're willing to do a little bit more dishes.
Right. But listen, on a weeknight, I would never turn this down. Are you kidding? I would absolutely do it this way too.
All right.
Okay, so what next? We're going to add our tempeh now?
I'm going to add the tempeh. Pretty simple. Put most of that in. And then I'm also going to add some of our more wet ingredients. The beans I cooked ahead of time. You know me. I make my own beans at home.
Or you could use canned.
You can use canned, absolutely. I prefer to use to go more sodium-free and salt as I go.
And once again, less expensive.
And a little bit of whole grain pasta. Again, a really simple substitution to include more whole grains in your diet is to, instead of using regular pasta, use a whole grain pasta. Most people won't be able to notice the difference, and at the end of the day, you end up with a lot more B vitamins, more minerals, and more fiber. So
yeah, especially in something like this, you're not going to notice it one bit.
Exactly. We'll need some of those herbs, but those will go in towards the end.
At the end, yeah. Okay. I was at the ready.
Yes. Ready to chop. So I'm going to add the tomatoes and just a little bit of water since I want this to be a little bit more of a soupy consistency, like a stew.
Gotcha.
About equal parts tomatoes and water.
And how about your red pepper?
Yes, my red pepper sauce, cayenne pepper sauce. And I found that this kind of brings that quality, that flavor profile that I was missing from the canned ingredients my mom would usually use growing up. Which, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy those.
We definitely like our pepper sauce in our house.
Absolutely.
We have a tendency to put it on quite a few things. We enjoy it.
It's really great. I'm going to just season a little bit more. And then we bring this up to a simmer, kind of on high heat, and then turn it down, or bring it up to a boil, and then turn it down to a simmer, about 20 minutes or so.
So it sort of comes together, cooks down and comes together?
Exactly. The flavors can kind of marinate. You don't necessarily need to worry about things getting cooked through thoroughly because tempeh.
Well, I see it's already starting to bubble.
It is.
So why don't we take a break? We'll get this all cleaned up. We'll let it do its thing, and then when we come back, we're going to make some trail snacks and some tea. 2 things I never thought I would be making together in the same segment, but we're going to do it.
Absolutely.
Don't go away.
These are the moments that bring us to our feet. The 15 seconds of fame. The foul ball. But the most important moment happens when we all stand together. Stand up with us.
Welcome back to Community Cooking. I am with registered dietitian Jessica Beaudoin, and we have our goulash.
Yes.
That's what you're calling it.
Yes.
It's sort of a stew, a very hearty stew. We've got our tempeh in there, and we've got mushrooms and whole grain pasta and a bunch of veggies, tomatoes cooking down.
That's it.
And we're going to let that go through this segment.
Absolutely.
The only thing that we need to add at some point at the very end is you're going to sort of use the nutritional yeast to bring it all together and then throw your fresh herbs at the end so that they don't turn brown.
Exactly. If you were using dried herbs, you'd add them earlier in the cooking process.
Great.
But we're using fresh.
Now we're going to talk about I almost said dehydration. No, not dehydration. That's a different thing. Not a good thing. This is dehydrating.
Exactly.
Okay. We're going to do that. We're going to make a tea, too. So this is our trail snacks portion and of the show. And I see you have some things that you've already dehydrated. Tell me about that.
So, yes, I've been getting into dehydrating lately. I recently invested in a dehydrator at home.
That's what's sitting right behind us here.
That fancy machine in the back. And that's actually what I've used to prepare a couple of things. We've got a DIY tofu jerky, as well as some dried mango and some dried jackfruit that I've brought along with me today. And you don't have to have a dehydrator at home necessarily to make dried fruit, to make tofu jerky. You can use your oven. If you've got an oven that goes down to 200 degrees or even lower, if possible, you can make all of these foods in your oven. Just prop it open a little bit with the oven on the lowest possible setting.
And keep it in overnight.
And keep it overnight, exactly.
Right,
exactly.
okay. Yeah,
Flipping and checking it.
An incredible money saver, because this stuff's not cheap when you buy it.
Absolutely.
Very, very expensive, actually. If you are into dried fruits, it's not cheap.
It's pricey. This is a great way to save on that at home, and also a great way to preserve the harvest. Buying fruits when they're in season is wonderful because they taste the best, but they tend to spoil quickly.
Right.
So
and
dehydration preserves
speaking
it.
of DIY,
Yes.
you can also make a DIY dehydrator.
Yes.
If you go online and you go like YouTube and stuff, you can find these DIY dehydrators. And I know actually, I think Alton Brown has made a version on one of his old shows.
Of course he did.
And it's a series of like basically cookie racks and fans and a heating element.
Yes.
Because that's all it is.
Wow.
It's just a real slow fan and a very light heat, just creating a dry area and enclosing it.
Absolutely, and that's a good point because actually these drying at home in an oven works best with a convection oven or some air circulating.
Moving the air around. Okay.
And you do need to flip it if you're doing it in the oven.
So we're gonna start with the tofu jerky. And you're gonna make a marinade for it, correct?
So yes, I'm gonna make a marinade today. It's a very simple, straightforward marinade. Just basically using a little bit of low sodium soy sauce, about 2 parts to low sodium soy sauce to about 1 part of water.
Okay.
And
then this is what our finished product's going to look like.
Yes.
I got to tell you, I'm going to try this.
Yes.
I'm going to try this. It looks a little like a dog treat. A little bit. I don't mean to.
So does regular jerky.
but listen, I'm not going to let that sway me.
Absolutely.
Because I'm actually really looking forward to trying it.
Yes.
So okay, so we had the soy, we got the water, a little bit of
liquid smoke.
Yeah.
Again,
tread lightly with that. Yeah.
I'm gonna do 2 capfuls. Because we're not gonna be actually consuming the marinade. It's just gonna be imparting its flavor into a neutral base. So a couple of capfuls of that. Also gonna use some of the onion powder you've got on your station over here, just to kind of give it a little bit more oomph. And we're gonna mix that up, and then essentially. That's all there is to it.
And we slice up the tofu.
I'm gonna slice up the tofu. You can customize this marinade as well.
How long does it marinate for?
4 hours.
Oh,
2 to 4 hours. It doesn't need very long.
Okay. All right. I'm going in. I'm doing this.
Okay, do it. Yeah, give it a try.
I gotta tell you something. That's pretty darn good.
Thank you.
I'm serious. That's really good.
I mean, so I was vegetarian for a period in my life, and
I would absolutely eat this on the reg.
One of the things I missed was the jerky. And you can't find vegetarian jerky very easily in the store. You find a lot of different meat jerkies, turkey jerky, but
it's got a great texture.
Thank you.
And you know what? Just enough salt. The smoke comes through at like a perfect level. Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely eat this on the reg. I'm serious. That is delicious.
It's one of my favorite snacks for hiking, for on the trail. Yes.
I'm doing it.
Very
I love this.
easy.
That's great.
200-degree oven, propped open, and you can do this at home as well.
And you said this is?
That's our dried mango.
And
so again, very expensive jackfruit, which incidentally, when it's dried, tastes exactly like a juicy, like fruity gum. It's quite good.
Well, jackfruit's interesting stuff because you see what all the rage is now with jackfruit is because it shreds. People are using it to make like a pulled pork sort of thing.
Yes,
Have
I've
you seen that?
seen that. I've tried it. It's pretty good.
It is.
It's
it is
a little
good.
funky.
Yeah. Well, what you got to do is you've got to really sort of take away some of the sweetness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's sweet. It's fruit.
It is.
So you got to sort of mask that a little bit, or else it can be a little bit too sweet. But that said, texture-wise, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I just started peeling this.
Thank you. Yes.
Because this is what you want to do here, right? You want to cut this in. It looks like you had strips there.
Yeah, the key to preparing dried fruit at home is consistency and evenness in how you're slicing it. So what I did at home is just like you're doing, peel that fruit with a paring knife, and then kind of cut around the core and then start slicing it into about a 1/4 inch thick slices.
Gotcha.
And what you end up with is fairly thin strips of dried mango.
Because you're dehydrating and all the water's coming out. And what we do is we're laying it on a piece of parchment on the tray, because this is going to be our oven version.
That's it. So again, on the parchment paper on the tray, don't let any of them touch or overlap. You want enough space for the air circulation to go.
Okay. Otherwise, you'd have parts that aren't quite dehydrated.
Yes.
That's interesting.
The thicker it is, the longer it takes to dry out. And then, 200-degree oven, propped open, let it go.
I'm still loving this. This is the surprise of the day so far. That's really good.
I've tried a couple of different recipes. This has been my favorite so far.
I'm a big beef turkey jerky fan. I mean, that's like a great snack for me. I love it.
It's one of the things a vegetarian would miss.
And very interesting is a lot of jerkies, some of the problem with it is they can be high in sugar.
Yes.
A lot of if you look on the packaging, the sugars can be high.
Preservatives.
And you didn't put any sugar in there, right?
None at all. None at all. No,
All right.
Really straightforward. Let's see how you do with this mango. Yes. So the key to cutting a mango is, of course, working around that core, which is the trickiest part.
Right.
But once you kind of feel it with your knife, you can kind of jimmy it around nicely.
And
That's beautiful.
You can't waste this either, right?
No, and save the core for gnawing.
Oh, are you kidding me? That's for the chef, absolutely. Anybody who throws this in the trash at this point, no, you grab yourself a paper towel and you just sit there, right? Come on.
Oh, I enjoyed a couple of cores making
fruit
for the show.
Delicious. So about like that?
Exactly. Thin, even slices, fanned out nicely on there, no overlap.
There we go.
And you don't need to do much to it. I actually normally, I do have some lemon juice here. Normally what I do is soak it in lemon juice for about 10 minutes.
Acidulate it a little bit? Okay.
You don't need to, but it does help prevent some of that browning. So
yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So let's say we did that.
Yeah, we'll say we did for illustration purposes.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Now, you're also going to make some turmeric tea, correct?
Yes. So the other thing I brought today was some turmeric tea. Turmeric is pretty trendy these days. A lot of people are using it in cooking and in making teas and lattes out of it. But today I wanted to make a tea.
Don't you love how things that are thousands of years old become trendy?
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh, it's the new thing. Not quite the new thing.
No.
It's like been around for a long
Your
time.
ancestors.
But stand in line behind kale or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, tell us about the nutritional properties of that.
Yeah, so turmeric is known for its anti-inflammatory properties, and the reason why I like it so much now that I've been doing a lot more hiking and camping is because it helps reduce the inflammation from all of that stress that exercise puts on your body. It's good to get out there on the trail, get some hiking in, but a little bit of turmeric tea at the end of the day helps to reduce the inflammation in your joints, helps your muscles recover better.
And the inflammation on your insides. I mean,
Exactly.
let's not forget that, because I think that what a lot of people don't realize is that disease and illness really starts with inflammation.
In the inside, absolutely.
It's a thing. So when you have this as a regular part of your dietary regimen, you're controlling inflammation on a consistent basis.
From the inside
and that's
out.
only from the inside out, and that's only going to benefit you digestion-wise,
right?
Just the way you feel, just the way you feel. Sometimes, it's like you can't really I don't know what's wrong with me,
right?
But I can't put my finger on it. I can't really describe a symptom, but I'm just off.
I always emphasize that with my clients, that it's when you're making changes to your diet, when you're making improvements in your eating pattern, pay attention to how your body feels, because I don't think we check in enough on our bodies to see how we're feeling, to see if we're feeling healthy, if the foods that we eat actually make us feel better.
Right. Yeah. No. It's funny because when you start doing some of these elimination diets, you can sort of figure it out.
Yeah.
You eliminate one thing at a time, whether that be gluten or sugar or alcohol for some people, or what have you. Soy. Dairy. You can sort of figure out what your body's reacting negatively to.
Absolutely. Yeah, elimination diets are on the rise, and I think a lot of us are finding that we're sensitive to foods that we had no idea. We've become so disconnected with our bodies and how we feel when we put foods inside of us, and I think an elimination diet is a good way to get back in touch with
And if
that.
you haven't done anything like that before, I would just say that I think it's a good idea to consult someone like a dietitian,
professional, yes.
right? Or at least your doctor, and talk about it, and just don't start, because you can do yourself harm in the sense that you may not actually be figuring out what's
Right, or you may think you're eliminating something that you haven't fully because of ingredients and additives and
Right.
processed ingredients.
And look how beautiful the color on that turmeric is.
And you'll notice I'm using
a carrot.
gloves. It's a bright orange root, but it does tend to stain whatever it touches.
So you look like Magda in Something About Mary,
a little bit.
right? Like you've been spending a little too long in a tanning booth.
That's it. That's it. So if you don't want your hands to be yellow for a couple of days, you might want to wear gloves. And so for this tea, all I'm doing is just going to chop up some ginger, chop up some turmeric. You could grate it a little bit more finely, but we're going to strain it before you drink it at the end of the day anyway.
Great.
And in this tea, I'll also be using a little bit of cinnamon as well. Cinnamon,
Nice.
which is great for regulating blood sugar. It's also a nice, really warm, soothing spice.
Well, I've done with this with just ginger, and it's
Yes.
amazing how gingery that water gets and how tea-like it becomes with just putting ginger root in with hot water.
Yes.
And how good it makes your throat feel if you have a sore throat.
And it's so great for indigestion as well. Ginger tea, I would recommend all the time to my patients with nausea because it helps with gastric emptying, so it helps
Chinese
your stomach.
medicine, it's given to pregnant women for morning sickness.
I recommend it for morning sickness as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's very effective, and there's probably a dozen other things that ginger tea can do for us that we just
Right.
don't have studies to back
Just
up.
eat it.
Eat it. It's good for you.
Put it in your food.
You won't
Make tea
regret
out of it.
it.
You know, don't worry about it. It's not going to do you any harm.
First, do no harm. This won't harm you.
Right. And it gives things such a nice flavor, a nice bite, nice crisp,
does.
bright bite to it.
It's a very soothing tea, bright and soothing. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that and put that into the cup. We've got some water warming on the stove. I'm going to throw in about a half teaspoon of cinnamon. You can up or down any of these ingredients as you wish,
Sure.
but you really don't need a whole lot of this cinnamon to get.
You're almost making a chai here.
Yes,
Like a fresh chai.
You could add black pepper. You could add cloves. I mean, really, you could do this all up.
Cardamom.
You could have milk as a base instead of water if you wanted, more of a latte style.
Great. Well, I tell you what, we're going to get the hot water in there and let that steep. We're going to finish up our stew with what we're looking at over here, our herbs and our nutritional yeast. Take a break, get cleaned up, and come back and let's have a little stew and tea.
Let's try some food.
Sounds good?
Excellent.
All right, it's going to be awesome. Don't go away. Welcome back to Community Cooking. I'm with registered dietitian Jessica Beaudoin. I've been snacking on this stuff during break, and it's awesome. The jerky, phenomenal. Unbelievable how intense these fruits are dried. Great, but it's time to get into the goulash, the vegetarian goulash. Here we go. Hot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Very nostalgic of childhood for me.
Very hearty, very warming. That's great. One pot meal for sure. Delicious. And now I want to try some of the tea. We sweetened it up with a little bit of honey, but it smells incredible. And it is incredible.
Ah, thank you. I'm glad you like it.
Thank you. We're going to do this again, right?
Absolutely.
All right, well, it just goes to show you we really are cooking with some of the best chefs from right here in our own community. On behalf of myself, Jessica, everyone here at Community Cooking, have a great day. We'll see you next time. I'm going back.
If you'd like a copy of the recipes seen on this show, send us a self-addressed stamped envelope to the Office of Cable and Community Relations. That's 3350 Civic Center Drive, Suite 200, in Torrance, California, 90503. Be sure to note the show number displayed on the screen. And don't forget you can find all the fresh ingredients used on today's show at the Farmers Market. Visit the one here in Torrance at Wilson Park. That's located at 2200 Crenshaw Boulevard. They're open every Tuesday and Saturday from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m., rain or shine. And if you'd like to be a guest on our show, email us at communitycooking@torranceca.gov and check us out online at youtube.com/TorranceCityCable and like us on Facebook at Community Cooking TV.